Hello, hunters. Are your AT Velkhana hunts looking exactly like this? Well, you're not alone. Arch Tempered Velkhana is definitely the hardest hunt in the game, and yes, I am comparing it to Fatalis and Alatrion, both of which don't hold a candle to the level of difficulty on this hunt. So, stick with me, hunters. I'm going to go over exactly how do you take on this monstrous opponent and do it effectively and consistently. Hey hunters, I'm Ajax and thanks for tuning in. Up first, we're going to talk about how we're going to structure this video and make it most valuable for you. First up, we're going to talk very briefly on how to unlock AT Velkhana and getting the mission and getting started. Second, we're going to go over her moveset, how to dodge those moves, the counters and openings, and even some of the environmental aspects you can use to help make this hunt better for you. 3, we're going to talk about helpful items and loadouts that will help increase your chances in defeating this monster and increasing your survivability. And finally, I'm going to dive into the most optimal builds to enable you to perform your best in this hunt. Let's get started, hunters. After you visit the commissioner, he'll give you a quest at Master Rank 100. And then you go to the actual message board, go to events, and then the 7th page, you'll see the quest named The Place Where Winter Sleeps. And that will take you up against Arch Tempered Velkhana, arguably the most difficult monster in the game. Your reward is going to be 57,000 zenny from change, and then the extra Velkhana tickets that you'll some of the high-level cool items. Now that we actually have the mission, let's talk about actually fighting Velkhana. So, first off, let's look at a little bit of her moveset and what to mainly watch out for, and how to counter them. The first one up is this tail stab, and let's watch this again. It does almost half your health, and it is deadly. Velkhana likes to do this 3 or 4 times in a row at different angles. The best thing to do for the counter is just be aware and then dodge, dodge, dodge.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Next up, Velkhana likes to throw out these ice walls, and it's extremely easy. Just stand in the middle or between 2 walls while she's throwing it out and just wait for them to explode and then run straight at her.
Fatality.
Next up is my favorite to counter. Velkhana likes to have a sweeping ice breath that moves across the map, and basically you got a couple ways to manage this. One, you can outspace it and run off to the right. Your hunter is fast enough. Second, you can dodge right through it. And third, you can get right up on Velkhana's face and let her push you while you attack. And that will help you avoid the attack and present yourself with a huge opening to do some serious damage. This next move is by far the most dangerous in my opinion. Velkhana likes to conjure these ice crystals in the air that continuously lock on to where you're moving, and they are so damaging, as well as provide an opening for Velkhana to follow up really fast and knock you out with various other moves that she can possess. It is one of the most undetectable and hardest moves to follow. So basically, to avoid this, each time you have to look when Velkhana roars up in the air, and then you see the crystals start to form, and then you just have to continuously dodge and outspace that move and get back close to Velkhana. Next is Velkhana's ringed frost attack, which brings out 3 to 4 rings of frost glaciers, and they pop up in the air and they hit you, and sometimes can even one-shot you if you're not careful. There's a couple ways to get around this. The first, you can definitely outspace it, but what I like to do is dodge into the attacks and move from ring to ring, and then it leaves a huge opening to do some serious damage to Velkhana if you time it correctly. This will just take a little bit of practice, but after you do it 1 or 2 times, it is extremely easy to recognize because it's very telegraphed, and just set yourself up for damage. A couple things I like to do off of this is definitely grab onto Velkhana's head, get that yeet, and knock her down for even more big damage. Next up is the only move for Velkhana that really doesn't have too good of a counter, and you just have to accept that you have to outspace it, and that's her stacking glacier move. She'll shoot out a bunch of glaciers that will just kind of pop out of the ground very quickly, and the best thing to counter this is to either outspace it just by running away and far away from her, or off to the left or the right where I've found the most success. And that way you can dive right back into her and start doing some damage after that. Finally, the coup de grace, the biggest move that she does, the most damaging, but also the best move to absolutely counter and smash the hell out of this wicked dragon, is her flying frost breath that she flails around everywhere. All you have to do is run towards Velkhana, stand right under her feet, and just wait for her to start shooting down the ringed frost breath that we talked about earlier. And there you have it. You can just absolutely pummel her after this move. But don't get caught too close in front of her, directly in front, because she does like to provide a pool of frost that you can be frozen in and restrict your movement, and that's where you take the serious damage. Finally, Velkhana is a hunt where you really are pressed for time, so leveraging the clutch claw and the yeet mechanic to be able to create openings for yourself is extremely important. Creating openings against Velkhana and the hunter-made openings is the best way to do massive amounts of damage, whether that be a mount or the yeet mechanic as you see here. Finally, one last tip is to leverage the environment around you to defeat Velkhana. Now, whether that be using the slide attacks of the hammer, outspacing her with aerial attacks by the insect glaive, or frankly, just using the ice crystals on the ground that she puts to out-jump her attacks. That sometimes is one of the most overlooked items that you can do. A lot of her attacks are ranged and low to the ground, and you can just out-jump it when you have that opportunity. Last but not least, remember to hit those crystals at the top of the very first area, drop them on them. That is an extra 8,000 damage that really helps decrease the time, and you'll need it for this hunt. Hey hunters, if this video is valuable to you, please take a second to drop a like and a comment. It really helps the channel and helps keep me doing what I love to do, which is bring you the best gaming experience possible. So thank you, and let's continue with it. First things first, understanding the single most important step of defeating Arch Tempered Velkhana, and that's pet your Poogie. Like seriously, it is the most important thing. You will not win unless you do it the right way. Because if you don't, you're going to be... Next up, to support you in this hunt, let's talk items. Now, a lot of this is standard for your in-game item loadouts. There are a few things that I do want to call out specific. But if not a lot of this looks familiar, I have a video on item loadouts that's broken down by where you are in the game. Please go ahead and check that out, and then maybe come back to this section, and you'll have a better grasp of what we're going through. Because a lot of these items I'm going to skip and just talk about some of the honorable mentions for this specific AT Velkhana hunt. Okay, first up, bring an ancient potion. Now, it is inevitable that you faint at least some point in this hunt, and basically you're not always able to eat. So just crack that ancient potion and rank your 2 demon drug and armor scan, and then get back to it. All right. Next up, I like to talk about some of your short-term buffs, which is Might Seed and Demon Powder. Now, when you have an opportunity to deal some damage, for example, if maybe one of your teammates is mounting the monster, slap a Might Seed, eat one of those, throw a Demon Powder, get that immediate buff for your damage. So when that monster comes down, you can absolutely smash it for some high damage. Next, you're going to absolutely need a Farcaster. Velkhana does a lot of damage, and the ice attacks are just inevitably just going to smack you around. You're going to use potions, your mega potions, your max potions, everything. So have a Farcaster, chunk that sucker down, get back to camp fast, reload, and get right back in there. And finally, biggest item that I found the most helpful in this hunt, poison smoke bombs. Poison smoke bombs absolutely a ton of tick damage to AT though. Just toss one down right when you get up to her, then proceed on helping. It does it in the background, and then basically you can proc poison 2, and if it's a really long hunt, 3 times with some help from teammates if you're not solo, and you will do a ton of tick damage, and that can save you in those last 5-6 minutes of the hunt. So those are some of the items that I like to bring in this hunt. So with that, now we're going to jump into optimal builds. Now that you know everything there is to know about the hunt itself, let's talk about the build that is absolute. And yes, I know I use the hammer, but this build can be applied to almost any melee weapon. We're going to walk through it, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I like to do, both damage and survivability. Again, as a reminder, none of this is requiring any of the Arch Tempered Velkhana materials. So you can make this build without ever hunting Arch Tempered Velkhana. First up, let's talk about the weapon. It's one of the best weapons in the game, and it comes out of the Raging Brachydios tree, and that's the Light Break Hammer. What I love about this weapon is, for one, Velkhana's weak to blast, and then 2, just the damage in this thing is absolutely insane. Now, coming up next around that is the augmentations. Now, some of these will take a little grinding. You're not really 100% in need of all 3 of these augmentations, but the main one that I want you to focus on is attack increase. If you can't get any other ones, get attack increase because you're going to need the extra damage. Infinity's second, and then elemental and status effect up is third. That's the build I like to play for Velkhana on the Light Break Hammer. Coming up in the charm slot, I love the Challenger Storm because I love the Agitator perk. Now, if we look at the Agitator perk, increase attack power and affinity when large monsters. Being an Arch-Tempered monster, Velkhana is always enraged. You very rarely, with except for the Yeats, have an opportunity where she's not enraged. So take advantage of that. Get that damage boost. Coming in next, and we talked about it a little while ago for my favorite items, but I love the Temporal Mantle. It's great for beginners, and it's still great for experienced players. It just gives you that break. This fight is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So that Temporal Mantle gives you some time where you can actually have a little bit of downtime and not worried about getting smoked. Second, you can go back and forth on this. Now that I've hunted her quite a few times, I prefer the Evasion Mantle because it gives me that extra damage boost. And every single time you dodge closely one of her abilities, you get that damage boost. It procs the Evasion Mantle, and you just do it so much better and takes it and allows you to take advantage of those. But if you need a little bit more health and a little bit more resistance to Velkhana themselves, and this is your first time, I highly suggest the Ice Proof. That was the way I beat it the first time. It just takes the edge off of a lot of Velkhana's. Moving into the armor. Basically, it's the Alatreon set, and that is my favorite set to use for Velkhana, and it's purely because of Alatreon's divinity. Let's talk about Alatreon's divinity. Your weapon's elemental power increases as your armor's elemental resistance increases. As your elemental resistance for your armor increases, your weapon's damage with that. Secondly, the Divinity level 3 is going to actually say all elemental resistances are increased by 20%. That again lets you take every single ice attack from Velkhana at least one time. You can't take recurring things no matter how strong you are, but At least it gets you to where you're not one shot the whole time. I use Escadora Wisdom, the beta, Escadora Soul beta, Escadora Arm Guards beta, and Escadora Might alpha. And then finally, I like bringing the Golden Lung Greaves, mainly because of the weakness exploit perk that comes with the Greaves, and it gives me 2 levels exploit. And that saves me 2 jewels. Now, let's look at the skills, the jewel placement for the hammer set. Couple honorable mentions here, and what I like to call out on skills that you really should focus and really should have for this hunt, save you every single time, is Divine Blessing being one of them. That one saves your butt so many times, saves you from those KOs, even when you have like a fourth of your health left and you take like a major hit, it can sometimes just save you from fainting. Now, about the build itself, first off, let's talk about the skills and what's best to slot for. I like Slugger being on a hammer. It helps you get those openings, whether you're using a hammer, hunting horn, lance, a greatsword, anything that does a lot of blunt damage. And I know I said greatsword there, but it's got that slap on it. That Slugger makes the biggest difference in the world, because it really helps you knock out. And I've upgraded Slugger to level 3 for this. Next, the health boost. Having health boost level 3 gets you that extra health, helps with that survivability. Again, it's something, if you're a more experienced player, more skilled, that you can kind of just take away. You'll still have a great build, and you can unslot health boost for some more. Next, evade window. Gosh, evade window is extremely helpful as far as increasing that invulnerability window, and that really helps in some of the longer attacks that Arch Tempered Velkhana has, that ice that spreads across the ground. That will help with dodge and your, especially with a mainly grounded weapon. Now, I have level 7 attack boost. That pretty much comes with the armor set. It's really nice. And that, just being a hammer, definitely focused on raw attack versus status. Next, what I like to say is resentment. Resentment works in a couple ways here. When you have red health, your attack increases by +5 all the way through +25, depending on how many slots you have in. I have all 5, especially when I'm using the evasion mantle, and that way, whenever I have some red on my health, it is increasing my attack tremendously, especially when it's just a sliver. It's wonderful to help get that damage. Velkhana, ice monster, best thing to have right now. Ice resistance builds up that defensibility. Awesome in withstanding a lot of those ranged attacks. Heartbreaker helps break that ice armor, and especially helpful with blunted weapons. Divine Blessing we talked about, and then kind of your basic attack builds like critical eye, weakness exploit to help increase that affinity and damage. Very, very helpful in itself. Now, for all you people out there that are looking at me and saying, Ajax, I'm just not a hammer player, I don't like slow weapons. Well, this next build is for you. I center it around the insect glaive because that's my preferred status weapon, but this works for dual blades or other weapons that are huge stamina consuming builds. Let's take a look at it. First, Raging Brachydios, like Break Press, top of the line glaive. And what I really, really like to do, especially with the fast weapons, the weapons that require speed and stamina, is having a health regen augmentation. Now, that's going to help counteract Safi's armor ability, which takes down your health and increases damage, and it requires you so many hits. That increased health regen on the Like Break Press, you'll just keep regenerating your health, and it'll help take away some of that extra red damage there. The Challenger Charm again, Evasion Mantle, Iceproof Mantle. In this case, I don't really use the Temporal Mantle when using a glaive because I spend a lot of my time in the air, and I have a lot more maneuverability. So I feel like I need to take the Iceproof Mantle just for some extra hits. And that's probably the same for weapons like the dual blades or even sword and shield that has a little bit more. The Safi Crested armor set is extremely helpful, just mainly because Safijiva's seal, and that's focused on anytime you're attacking, you take damage but recover it after like continuous attacks, and it just takes like one combo from the insect glaive to boost that attack right back up. So you're constantly just getting health, as well as getting health on every single hit. Now, onto the insect glaive build, or just the fast-paced weapon build. I'm not going to go over the whole thing because a lot of this y'all are already familiar with, and a lot is carried true. But a couple notable mentions that I want to call out for some of the faster weapons out there. The first one is power prolong. Okay, whether you got dual blades or insect glaive, having your powers prolonged and not having to get charges as frequently helps this fight so much, because Velkhana is, again, a marathon, and you're gonna have to constantly be using the kinsect in the case of the insect glaive and grabbing your buffs so many times, and this helps reduce that and help in the fight and doing damage. A second skill that I think most people are familiar with, and definitely you've had this a lot, Constitution. And that just adds that increased stamina. And as you're moving, as you start the fight with Velkhana, it helps to have like our stamina depletion decreased. That will make things a lot smoother. And then, quick pro tip here: grab that Wiggly Lich, and that will help. That will act just like a dash juice. That will reduce your stamina. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and stay tuned for more helpful videos. I know. That's a good boy. Look, good camera. Hey.